Anyways, I stopped fighting. For years in therapy, I processed, like, I must have kept fighting. My therapists were like, yeah, you must have kept fighting. So I was like, how did I make it out of this alive? And they were like, you must have kept fighting. You must have overturned him. But after talking to all of the other girls, I have realized he took the pillow off my face, not because he was trying to spare me or I was fighting so hard I got the upper edge, because I remember feeling and knowing that he was stronger than me, and the leverage he had on my body, he was sitting on my chest, straddling me. There's no way I was overturning that. I could bridge my hips all I wanted. He was sitting higher than my hips. That motherfucker took the pillow off of me to see if I was. And I know this because, and it took me years to process this, when I hopped up and we looked at each other, he was just as fucking surprised as I fucking was. And I said, I ran to the corner of a room and put my back in the corner of my bedroom. It was this far corner over here, looking at my bed, and I said the only thing I could fucking think to say while I had zero breath left in my lungs, barely, and said, what was that? And this man looks at me shocked and goes, I don't know, we were just playing. Now I have my phone in my hand, and I look down immediately and send a SOS text to the other two girls I'm commonly hanging out with, knowing that they're hanging out tonight 20 minutes down the road from me. I said, I need you here now. Delete the text. Sent it, deleted it. He sees me fuck with my phone. He takes my fucking phone. Not kidding. Took my phone. Fast forward, they end up showing up. I end up convincing this psychopath, like, hey, if we're gonna live together, we need to go get like pots and pans. I knew I wasn't going to make it out of this situation in a way that was irrational. I was going to have to use what I knew about him to like get out of the situation. What I fucking knew is that he found me attractive and wanted to be with me. So I started pretending like we were a couple, and if we were gonna be together, we needed more silverware because I didn't have enough silverware, pots and pans. We needed to go to Walmart and go shopping together, and I started holding his hand. Girls, we have power. Sometimes you just have to use it. So all that to be said, friends meet up, and then I convince him I have a family emergency, and that's why my friends showed up randomly. And I go with them, but it doesn't stop. The shit from him doesn't stop. He now thinks in his fucked up head we are a couple because of the way I acted when we walked out, because of what I was telling him to escape the situation with my fucking life. So I go to work, I spend the night out that night at my family home. I go to work the next day, and there are flowers on my door with a note. The same week, there are flowers at my job with a note. There are flowers left on my car with a note about how much he loves me. I am avoiding him, telling him I'm just really busy with school, really busy with IOP. Thankfully, we ended up in different IOP centers, which isn't always common when you live in the same area. And I ended up having IOP the next day, and when I went, I had bruising on my throat. We were all going around in a circle. I was not a big, and still am not a big, if I'm in a big group, talker. I'm not a share with the class kind of girly. I just sit there quietly if I'm in a large group of people I don't know. It gets to me, and the therapist is like, what's that? What did you do this weekend? I think it had been a Saturday this happened, and then I had IOP Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So this must have been a Monday. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And I had been on a bunch of medications for my depression and anxiety, so my inhibitions were low. And I said, someone tried to kill me this weekend. And everyone starts laughing in the group, and the therapist is looking at me like, really? She said, really? Can you please go step out and speak to our director? And I said, do I have to? And she was like, yeah, I need you to go speak with our director. She leaves the room, and I'm sitting in the chair, and she's like, wait a minute, I'll be right back. The director comes to get me, and I'm like, fuck, I'm in trouble. So I'm pulled out, and I have to sit with the director, and the director is the one that gives you the tour of the facility when you get there, and it's like a walk in and out situation. So it's not like you have to check in or anything. You do have to write your name when you attend therapy, just to put that you attended it. It wasn't court ordered or anything. It was just if you want to be your best, you should do these steps. And so I was doing the steps, and I wasn't in trouble. I was just struggling with wanting my life. So anyways, I didn't process how bad the situation was, but I definitely thought I hated men at this point. So anyways, I'm talking to the director, and the director's sitting there can I take a picture of your neck? And I'm like, if you must. And I'm such a little shit at this point in my life. I think I remember being only if you're gonna take me to lunch first. They laugh a little bit, but they're like, we would really they're sitting across the table from me, they're like, we would really like to call the police. And I'm like, it really isn't that serious. And they're like, no, like, this is concerning. And I'm like, it's fine. I'm anemic. I bruise easily. Like, it is what it is. And they were like, if we let you go right now without speaking to the police, what are you going to go home and do? And I was like, if you think I'm going to off myself, I'm not. I'm going to hit up Starbucks and get a Subway sandwich. And that's exactly what I did when they let me leave. So I left because I was like, I don't want to sit in this fucking group setting anymore. And it causes a lot of ruckus when one person has something going on in group and it fucks up the whole group. So they weren't about to let me go back into group therapy. Especially since I was a little shit when they would ask me questions. I didn't answer them in a straight way, like a straight get answers out of me way. So I got my Starbucks and I went home. And I remember being like, I should probably feel something. Okay, so I was like, at that point, like, I should probably feel something about this. And I didn't, but I was on a lot of anti-anxieties, so it made sense why I didn't. So I was afraid to live at home, my apartment at that point, and so the way I conquered that was one of the girls that I'd later end up engaged to was like, I can live with you there for like a week. I was like, hell yeah, brother, bring it on. So I dragged all the mattresses down technically the third story, to my living room, and we just watched Family Guy and vegged out, and I took off work and took off IOP and just bummed it for an entire week. I literally could not stand the thought of talking to anyone or going up to my bedroom, so I didn't. By the end of the week, this person that was staying with me, who was quite a bit older than me, their family got worried because they still lived at home and were like, when are you coming home? They started making plans to go home, and they were like, are you going to be okay? And I was like, I don't know. So they were like, why don't you come back with me? Like, break your lease, get out of here. You're obviously never going to be able to sleep in your bedroom again. Why don't you come meet my mom? You can stay the weekend. And I was like, okay. So I go, and we spend the entire weekend at their crib, their mom's condo, I should say. And we watch the L Word all weekend, and it's actually quite relaxing and nice to escape from the town where every shitty thing ever happened to me. Driving to that city and escaping the shit that had just happened to me, I felt this weird, like, spark of, like, my life is gonna get better. Like, leaving all the shit environment I had lived in pretty much since I was in kindergarten, as far as, like, the town goes, and seeing, like, new buildings and new surroundings, I was like, I could get used to this. Fast forward, the person that I go stay the weekend with, that I end up having a really nice weekend with, nothing weird happens then. We end up hanging out a lot more, but I do have to come back because I have unfinished business with my apartment and a job here. But I'm miserable. I hate it now. I hate my life here because I was traumatized. My job is tied to an assault. My home is tied to an assault. Nothing feels good about being there. Nothing feels good about going to work. So eventually this person convinces me that men are the devil and I'm actually gay, and that's what all of this means. My ill will towards men and my feelings about not liking them and not feeling safe with them mean I am gay. And they start pushing this agenda in my head. I tell them over and over, I am not like that. I don't like that. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And they still push that on me. One day they get me super trashed and they start making moves on me. And in the morning I am then told, hey, because of what happened last night, you're now gay. And I was like, oh, is that how that works? I know now, processing it in therapy, that was a form of assault as well. Just because you are too drunk to give consent or withdraw consent doesn't mean it is consensual. And unfortunately, I was too drunk to give consent for sure. And I was too young to be drinking. I wasn't even the legal drinking age yet. But I did it anyways, drinking. And from then on, I was very confused about how I felt, but I thought I had this obligation to be with this person. And when they offered for me to move in and I could say goodbye to my old life, I quickly made a very rash decision and did that.